Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth. Now, this is a great game if you like dungeon crawlers. Now, Persona Q2, as you can see, I have the Showtime Collector's Edition here that I got back in 2019 that I didn't open. And you might be wondering, how did I play the game if this is never open? Well, because the value of this has shot up in recent times, I decided to download the digital version so I didn't have to break the seal on this. Persona Q2 is a sequel to Persona Q1, which is basically a crossover game of Personas 3, 4, and 5. Now, this is a dungeon crawling labyrinth type RPG, and in so many ways, I really like this game a lot more than the first one because of its accessibility. Now, the whole premise behind this game is the characters from different personas kind of get sucked into this movie theater kind of realm where each labyrinth, if you want to call it, or like boss area, is kind of a culmination of one of the characters' fears, and you kind of go through the labyrinth, solve puzzles, and, you know, face enemies like your traditional Persona game. Now, when I say this is a dungeon crawler, these games are kind of based off the E-Train Odyssey series, I believe it is, where they're first-person, kind of old-school RPGs in the sense of they're first-person, you know what I mean? Things along those lines. You kind of go through 5 different labyrinths in these games, solving puzzles to get to different floors until you finally reach a boss area. And the bosses are super difficult in the sense of they're not unfairly difficult, but they all have a certain strategy that needs to be accomplished in order to beat them, and you will grind your head off in this game in terms of leveling up, because you do need to level up. You need to fuse your different personas and kind of make sure you have the best team possible at any given moment to be able to face and beat the bosses as they come up to you. Now, that's no different in the sense of how Persona games or Shin Megami Tensei games in themselves work. You have to fuse your personas, shadows, demons, whatever they end up being, depending on the game you are, to kind of create better allies that you can equip to your characters in order to be powerful. Now, the one thing different about these games compared to your traditional SMT games is how you get your personas. Now, normally, you would kind of talk them into being your allies, basically. In this game, you have to kind of beat your opponents in a certain way, and then you're kind of given a film with the persona on it, which allows you to summon the persona as your sub-persona, and kind of goes along those lines. It's very interesting. It works in practice. It's hard to kind of explain properly. Now, I said earlier this game was a lot more accessible than the first game, because the first game, the dungeons could get really annoying. This game, the labyrinths are very mainstreamed in the sense of they're not overly difficult to get through. The only thing I have to complain about is the amount of random battles you'll find yourself getting into. Because, you know, to the game's benefit, it tells you when you're about to get into a battle, because there's a little meter on the bottom, and after X amount of steps, it kind of triggers a battle. But I think this thing kind of refills way too often, and I always found myself wanting to get through the labyrinth, and then you kept getting hit with, like, battle after battle after battle. And that's my only annoyance with this game, because as a fan of the Persona series, this game lives up to a lot of fanfare, and I think it plays very, very well. And it plays, when you get into battles like your traditional Persona games, to a certain aspect. You know, you have to find your weaknesses, you can do your all-out attacks, you have support navigation partners that kind of, as you fill up what's like a support bar, you can do like special skills like recovery for 3 turns and things along those lines, depending what personas they have attached to them. So in itself, if you like dungeon crawling games, and if you're a fan of the Persona series, Persona Q2 is definitely a game worth getting. It is one of the last, if not the last, North American physical 3DS game. And like I said, the pricing is kind of going up for the physical edition of this game, just because of, I guess, how rare it was. I was happy I had this pre-order when it first came out. As I mentioned, the story, or I didn't even mention the story aside from being sucked into these films, the story itself is very playful. It doesn't take itself too seriously at points, and it has your traditional Persona charm. I was a big fan of just being able to play with all the different characters that were your main characters in 3, 4, and 5. And really, no one is missing. They're all kind of there. Aside from, I think, the character they added in Persona 5 Royal, because that game came out in 2020. This was a 2019 release. And it's cool because you equip your weapons, different armors, accessories that are kind of specific to each character. You have to also sell items in order to unlock new equipment that you can buy. And in itself, you know, the whole idea of the Persona Q series is great. I like it. The games are a little tedious for my liking in terms of just the battles, honestly. The puzzles in this game are really simple, and they're not overly annoying. It's just the random battles destroy my life, and that's kind of any RPGs where there's random battles. But as a whole, I would give this game like an 8.2 out of 10. You know, you get the charm of the Persona series, you get some dungeon crawling, you get the battle system that Persona is kind of known for with little tweaks because this is a 3DS game. You do get some anime-style cutscenes, which is cool. The only thing with the American release is the voice acting is still all in Japanese. In Persona Q1, the voice acting actually had been translated to English, which was a shame they didn't do that here, because Persona 5 had a really cool cast of voice actors, but the characters still live. Now, if you can get your hands on this in any way, shape, or form to play this, and you're a fan of that style of gameplay that I mentioned earlier, it's definitely worth the play. I beat this game in about 34 hours, and the only time I really had a struggle was the final Labyrinth, where for the final boss, I did have to grind a little bit. I went in there at one point, almost got him, but was definitely not powerful enough, and I had to start fusing personas, get extra skills, and yada yada, the traditional JRPG thing. Guys, if you've played Persona Q2, what were your thoughts? Leave them down in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, game on. I'll catch you later. See ya. Bye.